We have yet another horrific report from Nigeria about the ongoing genocide against Christians. Masara Kim, my friend from Truth Nigeria, fill us in. What's going on?
Yeah, so of course, while the Nigerian authorities, while the Nigerian parliament is struggling to deny and spread, to continue their tradition of falsehood, of twisting the narrative regarding the massacres in Nigeria. Yesterday, uh, 2 days ago, today is 10th, so we're talking about 8th now. On the 8th, there was a very horrific, just like you said, incident where Islamic terrorists set up roadblocks on a highway leading from the southern part of Jos to the eastern part of Jos, and it also connects from that axis. It goes further to connect with the neighboring Nasarawa states, where terrorists allied to Al Qaeda, allied to Boko Haram, have set up camps and usually come in to launch attacks. On communities in Plateau State and the other parts of the surrounding areas in central Nigeria. They set up roadblocks on that road and blocked. They literally stopped every vehicle that was coming and pulled out. The occupants pulled out the passengers and isolated the Christians, right? So usually you have, since it's actually a highway, so you have minivans, mass transit buses coming in, and usually they will stop a bus and check if there's a Christian in it. They'll pull that Christian out and slaughter them. And right now, as I speak, as a result of that horrific incident, confirmed we have more than 8 people that were buried yesterday. I drove on that road yesterday, and it was as dry and quiet as a graveyard, despite the deployment of soldiers who eventually controlled the situation and brought some normalcy. But again, the entire landscape around that axis, the entire area is dominated by the Fulani. The only people, the only sign of life aside from soldiers that I saw on that axis, on the entire landscape spanning more than 10 miles, it was only the Fulani militants who, by the way, have been credited with thousands of genocidal massacres, possibly 6 times more than Boko Haram.
Well, Masara, you actually sent me a video of you driving on that exact highway. Let's take a look.
Right now, I am driving along a road that became a death trap, and probably it still is, to dozens of Christian travelers yesterday who were ambushed by terrorists. You can see the terrain and what it looks like. There is a checkpoint, a military checkpoint here, but it looks deserted. All across this landscape, what you have is the Fulani.
Well, Masara, what you are saying, I've actually been seeing on publications kind of all around the world. There's suddenly this push in the Nigerian government to deny what you and your team have been reporting. But you just sent me videos of another mass burial of Christians in Nigeria. What are these videos that we're looking at right now?
Yeah, so those videos are actually from different incidences. Of course, just 2 months ago, we had an incident wherein more than 27 Christians were slaughtered just 15 miles west of Jos, the capital of Plateau State. And of course, that population included 11 children below the ages of 7, including a 2-month-old. The last time we had an interview regarding that particular incident, I reported that there was a 3-year-old that was killed. But no, that wasn't the youngest of the victims. There was a 3-month-old, there was a 2-month-old, there was an 8-month-old, there was a 1-year-old, there were 2 years old. Actually, the oldest actually of the 11 children that comprised or that made up the 27 death toll, the 27 victims were below the ages of 7. And like you said, the Nigerian government is trying really hard, is struggling, I would say, to deny what has been happening. But what they cannot deny is the reality, the facts, the evidences, right? So you can deny that Christians are not being killed, but locations don't lie. The mass graves don't lie. Christians will not go and gather to bury empty caskets or to just wrap some substance, maybe wood or something, in white fabric just to put on the ground and just claim that that is an instance of genocide. You cannot deny that. You cannot deny the fact that there are IDP camps, refugee camps scattered across the middle belt of Nigeria and every other part of Nigeria. What they have been claiming as mere act of terrorism is what they have been using. That is the issue of Boko Haram and ISIS terrorism, which is concentrated in the northeast. They have, in the past 20 to 25 or 30 years, tried to prove or show to the world that this is the only problem that Nigeria has. But again, while Boko Haram and ISIS is killing Christians and nominal Muslims, chiefly those who do not support their own version, their radical version of Islam, and those who have attempted, to provide a refuge to shield Christians who were on the verge of being slaughtered by these terrorists. They try to show that as the only problem that Nigeria is facing, and because of the fact that a few other Muslims are also being killed by those terrorists, it therefore qualifies as just a mere act of terrorism or mere act of criminality. But then the primary target in all of these areas, the primary targets in the northeast, in the northwest, in the central region, and the in the southern region, is always Christians. You only have nominal Muslims or liberal Muslims, what we call the moderate Muslims, being targeted. When the Christian targets are completely eliminated and there are no more Christians to target, or the Muslim victims have been found to be, quote and unquote, collaborating with Christians or soldiers, or even providing information to shoulder. So the Christian victims on how to escape or survive, or perhaps they openly refuse to adhere to their own radical version of Islam. But the primary targets and the largest chunk of the victims of the ongoing terrorism in Nigeria have been Christians, and this has spanned several years. When we say 60 to 70,000 Christians have been slaughtered in the last 2 decades, this is just a conservative estimate. Those are just the numbers, the victims that have been identified and possibly given a burial, like you have in those videos that I shared with you. The majority of the victims of these massacres never get reported. And of course, the Nigerian government has a way of, just hiding the reality on the ground. Whenever an issue happens or an attack happens, unless it gives, it has cornered, intimidated the press, it has also bought a lot of them, and so the Nigerian media cannot be trusted to report this. And so usually the Nigerian government has to issue a press statement giving its own narrative, which usually carries words like farmer herder clashes, communal conflicts, and all of that. And usually, if it doesn't give that press statement or address the press or call for a news conference, the event does not exist. And usually, the Nigerian authorities will not address the press until the death toll is as high as 100, 200, which cannot be denied because, of course, the international community is watching and the international media is also paying attention. The actual death toll from the road slaughter that ensued 2 days ago on the 8th of October 2025 has been estimated to be more than 10, with at least 2 victims still unaccounted for. But that does not even include victims of other massacres that had occurred, for other attacks that had occurred between Sunday and Wednesday, which were more than 6 actually that I have confirmed, right? So, but as of yesterday, I only witnessed the burial of 8 victims, right? So, but we fear, and based on available reports, the number could be more than 10, possibly more than 12 from the road slaughter.